Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to my shop. We're going to try something new today. Traditionally I've just done videos from the track or videos from vacations and things like that. We're going to try and actually do a how-to video today. I've got a 2011 GT-R that had an ABS module failure at a track day about a month ago. After doing a lot of research, it looks like the pump failed, so I've got a newer model pump that I'm going to install, and I'm going to walk through the process of pulling the old one out and getting the new one in and bleeding the brakes. So I'm going to go get it, bring it in, and get it up in the air, and we'll go from there. So real quick before I get into this, I should probably just say you're doing this, if you're trying to follow this, you're doing this at your own risk. If you mess up your car, sorry, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. Just be smart about what you're doing. When you jack the car up, make sure that you're using jack stands. Don't try and hold the car up on a jack by itself. Make sure you've got jack stands. You don't want the car coming down on you. Just be smart and double check everything before you button everything up. So just be safe. Safety glasses, things like that, good idea. So we're going to get into this and we'll go from there. So before we actually get started, just kind of want to show quickly what the symptom was. I got a VDC system malfunction and ABS system malfunction. This happened at the track. Towards the end of the first day, came back the second day. It kept self-clearing, but now it is on permanently and will not self-clear. So as I just kind of wanted to show everybody what it looks like, and then we'll go from here. Okay, I've got the car in the air. Just kind of want to go over a couple quick things. I just showed you the dash message that I was getting, showing me that the ABS and VDC weren't malfunctioning. If you get the warning light, a couple quick things to check before you go down the expensive path of replacing an ABS module. First things first is just double check that your brake fluid level is adequate. I knew already that mine was, but just verify the level is full. So that clearly isn't the issue here. The other thing to double check is to make sure that your ground terminal is good on your battery and also on the chassis. Something I did at the track just to verify it's on good and tight. I have retightened it, and I also checked the chassis side. Both were tight. I retightened both. Did not solve the problem. Afterwards I went and did a scan with Accutech, and with the Accutech scan it showed the C1111 C with 4 ones, ABS module failure. I tried running a recalibration of the pump, it failed. These are classic signs that the ABS pump has failed. This is a bigger issue on older cars. Mine's a 2011, seems to be 9, 10, 11, the CVA versions that seem to be the highest risk of this. Mine's a 2010 build, not a 2011 build. So, as I said, I'm going to get a few tools together and we'll start getting into this. First things first, always make sure that you disconnect your battery, because we're going to be dealing with electrical stuff here. So disconnect your ground and we'll go from there. Disconnected the negative terminal of the battery. This is just a good idea anytime you're dealing with electrical in the car, and I've heard it's a good idea anytime you're bleeding, especially the GT-R, because these pumps are so finicky. I'm going to do a step now that isn't necessarily required, but since we're going to have to do a brake bleed at the end of this anyways, I'm going to go ahead and purge the whole system. That way I just don't have a whole bunch of fluid leaking out of the ABS module when I go to remove it. I'm going to use a pressure bleeder. I have a Mighty Vac system. Pressure bleeds the whole system. Works great. Highly recommend the Mighty Vac or something similar. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go around all four corners, bleed the whole system out, make sure that the master cylinder reservoir is empty, and then we'll start tearing things apart. Okay, so car's in the air. I've purged the system. Now we've got to work on getting to the booster itself, or the pump itself. There are a handful of small plastic fasteners here that you've got to pop loose. You can use either a plastic tool or a small flathead screwdriver. Kind of depends on whether you've got a show car or not. A lot of my plastic clips are already kind of on their way out, so I'm not too concerned about using a flathead on here. Just make sure you're careful, you don't risk scratching your paint or anything like that. So I've got these out. I'm going to put them over here out of the way. You can just spin this out of the way. So this is the pump we've got to take off. It's going to take me a minute to figure out exactly how it's bolted in. I can see a bolt down here. We've got an electrical connection right here that I've got to get loose. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydraulic fittings that we've got to take care of. So I'm going to figure out wrench sizes on this, get a little bit better lighting in here, and we'll work on getting this pump out. Okay, I've got the cover off, I've got some tools. We're going to start by moving this electrical box out of the way, just to try and get more working room. This is not a factory fastener, this is from Z-Spec Design, part of their engine bay dress-up fasteners. I've got a bunch of the fasteners on the car, and on some of my other cars they're really nice pieces. Still have some more to put on this car, but they take some time to get to some of the fasteners. So that's probably a 10mm normally. That was an Allen key here. I'm just going to put the fastener back so I don't lose it. Next up we've got, I'm probably going to loosen up all of these fittings here before I remove this 10mm bolt. Did some looking before. These are both 12mm, these four are all 10mm. Now that I've got room to get to them, probably a good idea to have a paper towel around regardless of whether you purge the system like I did or not. I'm sure there's probably still going to be some residual fluid in here, and you obviously don't want to get brake fluid on the paint. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a paper towel before I crack these loose, and then we'll go from there. Alright, I've got a shop towel here in case we do actually leak anything. So these are all flare fittings, they aren't crazy tight. We'll go ahead and work through, get them all loose. Yeah, that one's definitely got some fluid around it. So, alright, so get all the lines free here. So this is where probably removing the clips was probably a good idea. It just gives you some more flexibility with the lines. I'm just going to wipe around here. The only other major connection you've got, we'll see if I can, it might be a little bit difficult with the head mount here. You've got a big electrical connector here. Down at the very bottom, hopefully you can see this, there is a little push point. You push on that and lift up, and this cams out. Then you can remove, kind of wiggle this electrical connector off of the ABS module. There we go. So that's off. I'm just going to kind of push that out of the way. At this point, I think the only thing holding this in still is this 10mm over here. So I'm going to grab just a little 10mm ratcheting box end and since I've got some extra room here because I moved that electrical connector, just take that off. Once again, being careful not to drop any of these fasteners. You can retrieve them, it's just a real pain. They fall down into a little crater and they're difficult to get out. So work that out, don't drop it. I'm going to put it somewhere that I don't lose it. So theoretically, this is loose now. There are two compression kind of rubber bushings on the bottom side that you're going to have to lift up to free this from. Obviously being careful as you do this, kind of watching this edge here. I'm not entirely sure how much effort this is going to take to get out, so I'm going to work at this for a second and kind of double check everything, and I'll come back once I get it out, and I'll let you know if anything is different than what I expected. Okay, so I struggled with this for a little bit. I actually ended up going and grabbing a small pry bar. So there's two compression kind of nipples into rubber down here, and just working on freeing them up, kind of prying this thing out of the way. Hopefully you can kind of see the two pieces down here. I've got one of them free at this point. So I still got to work the other one free, but said I had to go grab something to gain some leverage here to try and get this out. And they're pretty good. Yep. Okay. So as I said, kind of watch this. If you've got a really nice paint job, you might want to wrap a towel around this or something. So I've got it free, so we'll see what it takes to actually snake it out around all of these lines, obviously being very careful not to bend or crimp any of these lines, because otherwise then you got a real serious problem. Looks like it'll just maybe sneak out. Yep, just snuck out there. Be real careful, fluid. So this is the old pump. Said looks new pump, old pump. They look virtually identical. Part numbers, I've got this 47660 JF03A. This is seems to be a pretty uncommon one, at least from what I've seen on the forums, but it's definitely one of the ones that's prone to failure. The new one is 47660KB50B. So this is supposedly from a 2015 or newer GT-R. They're all supposed to be interchangeable, at least from everything I've read. So hopefully we're going to find out here soon. I'm going to go ahead and open up all the plugs on this. Actually, I'm probably just going to leave there's a handful of plugs here in place. I'm just going to leave them in place while I kind of fit it back in. I did grab the fastener, and I just kind of put it in here just to kind of get it out of the way. So if you want to clean up down in here, now's your chance. This car, I've got looks like I got a piece of acorn or something down in here. If you wanted to clean up, now would be the best chance you're ever going to get down in here. So I'm going to work on feeding this down in kind of the same way I got the other one out, being careful not to crimp any lines. Don't want to drop it or break anything. So I've got it back down in here. Just got to get these two rubber kind of nipple pieces back in place. I'm just gonna wiggle it till it gets back down in there. Once again, kind of watching all these lines as you do that. There we go. They're getting kind of hung up a little bit. So I think I've got them in now. You can actually reach around and feel underneath and tell that they're in, and I can feel that they're all the way in. So at this point, I got to get this fastener back in. So again, this is going to be just kind of tedious hand work trying to get this thread to start into the block. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and snug that up. This piece, this is a small enough bolt. I'm sure there's no critical torque spec on that one. You can go ahead while I'm here. I'm going to go ahead and get this electrical connector back on. It's real simple. You just push it back on, make sure it's all the way on, and when you snap this back down, it actually draws in. And just make sure that it latches on that push button down here again. You can pull up on it, it should not release. So, alright, so I got electrically connected, we got the last bolt in, both those pieces are on. I'm now going to remove all the little plugs here and start feeding the lines back in. These should be, ideally, yeah, they're the same size as the fittings themselves. Alright, I'm back. I've got all the lines kind of snugged up. I'm going to go ahead and tighten them all down. Bear in mind these are all flare fittings, so you don't have to go crazy. There probably is a torque spec just like everything else on the car, but this is one of those times that you can probably just go good and tight, and yeah, you'll be alright. So biggest thing is you just don't want to strip these out. As they generally don't require a ton of torque, and you can kind of judge by how much torque it took to remove them, which really wasn't very much. So I'm going to go through, get all these 10mm ones first, just because they that way I'm using one wrench and then I'll flip it around and get the others. So that should be good. I'm going to double check this 10mm down here real quick. Yeah, that's tight. So blocks in, everything's good. At this point, I said I've already reconnected the electrical. I need to put this box back, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my Allen key and remove this fastener that I just kind of put in to hold in place. Swing this back around, put it in, and it is a good idea with any of these Z-Spec fasteners to use a little bit of blue Loctite. I'm not terribly concerned about this one, and I've got some residue on there from when I put in the blue Loctite before. I'm just going to crank this down, snug it up. It's not like it's going to go anywhere. Alright, so ABS module, the new one, is in place. All the fittings are tight. I said electrical's on. This electrical connector's back. So now we're going to have to refill the system with fluid. So I'm going to go get some Modal RBF 600. That's kind of my fluid of choice here. I'm running it in my Track 350Z. I'm running in my Golf R, and I run it in this. So far I haven't had any problems. I haven't had a need to step up to the 660 fluid yet, but we'll see in the future. So I'm going to go get some fluid. I'm going to start filling this up, connect my pressure bleeder. I'll do a quick walkthrough on how to bleed in case anybody hasn't bled the brakes on one of these cars before. But let me go get some fluid and fill this up, and I'll be right back, and we'll go from there. All right, I have gone through. I have bled the whole system twice with my pressure bleeder. I've topped off the reservoir. I'm going to go around and torque all of the bleed screws. Just for reference, bleed screw torque on the GT-R is generally considered like 9 to 12 foot-pounds. I tend to run about 11 foot-pounds on these. Okay, I've gone through, I've torque checked all the caliper bleed screws. I got to put the little covers back on, but I'm going to double check one more time to make sure that I don't have any leaks. At this point, you can start buttoning things back up. Once again, you just got to swing this back into place. I had moved the cover over so I wouldn't lose all the pieces. So you just got to get these in, click them in. Make sure that this one is actually going through both pieces. Sometimes it'll push the lower one down and not actually connect the two. But otherwise, these are just simple push fasteners. get them into place, and we'll leave this cover out of the way for right now. I'll probably want to double check for leaks after I do the calibration on the pump. At this point, you can reconnect your negative terminal. I have to move this out of the way because on mine I've got an aftermarket clamp that requires things out of the way. So that's been mine requires an Allen wrench, but the standard one doesn't. So once again, if this is loose, this is something that can cause a warning light. So just make sure that this is good and tight. Wrong size. So once again, so just make sure this is good and tight and you've got a good connection. You don't want it would be really frustrating to go through all this work and all this cost and it just be your battery clamp. So just double check this before you even order the parts. But so it's good and tight. I got to put this piece back in. As I said, you probably wouldn't have to remove this if you had a standard negative terminal. You can probably just unbolt it with the pieces you've got. So click the fasteners in on this side as well. Click the cover back into place and you'll be done on this side. So at this point, everything is back together. I need to put the wheels back on the car, and then I'll have to go hook up my laptop with my Ecutech software so I can run a pump calibration. I'll bring the camera into the car and run through the pump calibration, and we'll cross our fingers and hope that everything works properly, and we'll hopefully wrap this up here shortly. Okay, we've got the wheels on, everything is plugged in, bled, ready to go. I'm now in the vehicle. I've got my Ecutech Pro software hooked up, so we're going to kind of go through the process that I believe we need to follow to calibrate the new pump and go forward. And we're going to cross our fingers that everything goes smooth. So I've got the Ecutech software up and running. Go up to tools after you've detected the ECU. You go down to the air conditioning ABS ECU. Go to the Nissan ABS tool. We're going to go down to the brake pressure sensor calibration, and we're going to start there. You're gonna gives you a warning, don't touch the pedal, and you're gonna hear some stuff happen. So steering wheel needs to be straight ahead, which mine is. Handbrake needs to be on, so I actually need to move the computer here so I can turn on the parking brake. So now we're going to engine is not running, ignition is on, so we're going to go ahead and hit yes and see what happens here. So the pressure sensor was complete, so we're going to try the valve calibration next. Same thing, e-brake on, don't touch the pedal. So we're going to while this is happening, I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but you can hear the ABS module going through a bunch of different things while this is going on. I did get a calibration complete, which is an improvement. Previously, when I had tried this, when I was getting the warnings, when I tried this pressure valve calibration, it was failing. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and see about making sure that these other parts are calibrated. I don't know what all actually needs to be done
So that was the D-cell G sensor calibration. We're going to try the steering wheel angle calibration, just to try and make sure everything is done. So it's now gone through everything in the ABS ECU. Calibration has been done. I did the pressure sensor calibration first, the pressure valve calibration second, then I did the D-cell G sensor and the steering wheel angle calibration. Everything is complete. So at this point, I believe we're good to start the car. I'm going to check over a few more things here, and then we'll fire it up and see what happens. Got some glare, but the good news here is that as of right now, the warning that I was getting for the ABS and VDC are both gone. Car's running fine. I'm going to back it off the lift and maybe take it out for a quick drive just to make sure that everything's good. I'll probably double check the brakes at some point, and cross my fingers that we're good to go. So thanks everyone for watching. Check out my channel for track day videos and some other stuff, and maybe I'll start putting together some more of these how-to videos in the future. Thanks again.